What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to The Order. The development of Skull and Bones has been as much of a tall tale as many of the pirate legends of old, but the game finally, and I mean finally, has arrived. I've gotten a ton of questions about this game every time I've streamed it. Is it good? What do you do in it? Is it like insert other pirate game? Do you get off the boat? Can I get on my friend's boat? So many questions, and it's understandable. This is a game that's been in the works for nearly a decade. That's evolved so much across every trailer and piece of footage that's dropped that a lot of people simply don't know what it is or what to expect from it. I've put a handful of hours into the game across various tests, betas, and now in early access and into launch. So in this video, I'm going to attempt to answer all of the basic questions about what you should expect from Skull and Bones and attempt to answer the ultimate question of, should you buy the game? So let's start with the basics. What exactly is Skull and Bones? The best way to look at the game is less of a full-blown pirate simulator and more of a piracy simulator. Skull and Bones is at its heart a naval combat game. You'll spend the vast majority of your time sailing the open seas, piloting one of a handful of different craftable ships, completing quests or contracts, sinking enemy ships, plundering enemy settlements, all while collecting as much loot as humanly possible. Ships come in a wide variety of sizes and class types, with each ship having a specific set of perks that cater to a certain playstyle. Build out a hull-heavy tank vessel that's impossible to take down, or you could even run a support ship with repair cannons, keeping your ally ships in tip-top shape. You can customize each ship's loadout and look to your exact specifications with a wide variety of weapons you can both craft and find throughout the world, and a ton of cosmetic options, most of which can be earned in-game as contract rewards or purchased with in-game currency. Ship-to-ship combat is a blast. Deploying your weapons, managing your reload times, using the brace mechanic to mitigate incoming enemy fire, battles can become intense, all-out naval warfare, and when combined with the excellent sound design of the waves crashing, crews shouting, explosions, cannons firing, these are the moments when Skull and Bones really shines, and there's plenty of enemies to take down in those waters, from the game's various merchant factions and military forts to literal ghost ships, and even sea monsters, and yes, occasionally other players. More on this in a second. While you're able to perform ship-to-ship boarding maneuvers, this is handled automatically by your crew. It's best to think about combat as you, the player, are the boat, with full control of steering, weapons, and navigation at all times. You're not moving about the ship for all intents and purposes, you are the ship. Which leads me to the question I've been getting probably more than anything: what about land combat? Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is where the pirate versus piracy simulator design philosophy is most evident. Land gameplay consists of disembarking at the various outposts and dens throughout the game's world, where you will interact with NPCs, trade, craft, and explore, as well as taking on treasure hunts, where you'll follow a map and a series of clues to a designated outpost to dig up even more loot. There is at launch no land-based combat, fighting, or shooting. This is undoubtedly the biggest point of contention with Skull and Bones and will likely be the main determining factor in whether or not this is the game for you. Again, if the naval combat, exploration, plundering, and crafting elements sound enticing, then you will have a good time here. But the biggest deal breaker will be the land-based gameplay and whether that lack of combat will ultimately turn you off from the whole experience. The game features a single-player story campaign that delves into the pirate's life and helps to introduce you to the various factions of the world, as well as key gameplay systems. The overall goal here is simple: grow your pirate empire by any means necessary. Player progression comes in the form of gaining infamy. You level up and grow your infamy by taking on contracts, completing plunders, sinking enemy ships, basically doing anything in the game. Though as a pro tip, you'll want to focus on burning through the main storyline as quickly as possible to earn the most infamy as early as you can, which will help you unlock the game's best ships and weapons. The game takes place in a massive open world consisting of 4 distinct regions, and given that this is an always online multiplayer game, yes, the map is populated by other players. You'll be able to interact with other pirates on land and at sea, teaming up for dynamic events, grouping up for plunders. You can even trade with other players and exchange goods. And yes, there is PvP. PvP is opt-in within specific events like the hostile takeovers and the cutthroat cargo treasure hunt, which requires players to join the event in order to target other players who also join the event. There's no fully open PvP at launch or dedicated PvP servers, so keep this in mind. It's entirely possible this gets added on later, but for the moment, there are still plenty of opportunities to get competitive and sink your fellow players. The game is fully cross-play on Xbox, PC, and PS5 with full cross progression and co-op. If you're playing with your friends, you each control your own ship, sailing side by side one another rather than everyone boarding the same boat. Obviously, endgame is a huge determining factor in whether or not a game is worth investing in. The endgame loop at launch for Skull and Bones further leads into the smuggling fantasy of the game with a system called the Helm. In short, you'll build out your smuggling empire by acquiring rare goods like sugarcane and poppy seeds and turning those goods into rum and opium to be sold for pieces of 8, the endgame currency. Those pieces of 8 can then be used to purchase a wide variety of new items such as high-end weapons, cosmetics, as well as the ship blueprints you can't find anywhere else. On top of that, you'll spend much of your post-max infamy time participating in PvP hostile takeovers or co-op legendary heists to acquire new manufactories, of which you can fund to help make even more goods, which produce even more pieces of 8. Admittedly, some of this gets wildly tedious, turning a lot of the experience into a glorified UPS delivery simulator, shipping your coins to and from the outpost to the dens. Obviously expect this system to get fine-tuned and built upon as the game progresses, but it's something to bear in mind when deciding if you want to invest into the game at launch. There's a lot still planned for Skull and Bones in the weeks and months to come, with a seasonal roadmap already out in the wilds, promising a ton of new additions to the game from new ships, new enemies, rewards, and significantly more. So I guess this leads to the final question and the reason you clicked on this video. Should you buy Skull and Bones? Now that I'm delving into the endgame and have put a few dozen hours into it, I feel pretty solidified in my answer on this one now. This game is simply not going to be for everyone. It isn't the full-blown swashbuckling pirate fantasy that people were hoping and dreaming for, and that's something you need to know immediately up front. That being said, if the idea of a naval combat-driven pirate experience with an emphasis on crafting, smuggling items, dynamic world events, PvP, and a live service MMO light feel is something that sounds even remotely intriguing to you, there's enough here to recommend Skull and Bones as a pretty fun vibe that can slide in comfortably within your personal gaming loop when you're looking for something to play with friends or chill out to solo. The core foundation of the game, the customization, the feel of the world, the ship-to-ship combat is all in a pretty solid place, and I think there's something really good here that's worth checking out. It's best to judge the game for what it is instead of what it isn't, and use that to decide for yourself whether it's something you think you'd be into. Hopefully I've managed to answer some of the questions you have about Skull and Bones. Bear in mind the game does have a free trial where you can experience the first 8 hours for yourself, and I highly recommend checking it out and informing your own opinion about the game. If you found this video helpful or insightful at all, be sure to hit it with a like and subscribe to the channel for more gaming coverage and insight. Until next time, have a good one.